Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Financial Advocate Podcast. You've got Colin Meeks. I'm your host with Ryan Stark. We're both financial advisors with Maryland Financial Advocates here in Baltimore. And today's guest, we're going to talk to somebody who knows a little bit something about charity and giving money to charity and helping the community. So we're really excited about that. She has extensive experience in this field. She's worked over the years for Red Cross, United Way, the Salvation Army, Habitat for Humanity, and she is now the Director of Gift Planning for the Baltimore Community Foundation. Rosemary Calderalo, right?
Yes, thanks.
Is a Ph.D., so she's here to answer a bunch of questions for us, and they always say charity begins at home. But what's nice about with our business is when we deal with people and their financial plans and helping them do the things that they want to do with their money, charity is often one of those things that they like to see happen in their plans. So welcome, Rosemary.
Thanks, Colin, and thanks. It's wonderful to be here with you and Ryan.
Good. Yeah, we're glad to have you. So tell us a little bit, just a high-level view of what Baltimore Community Foundation does, and then we'll get into some of the great things that you guys are up to.
Well, thanks. A community foundation plays a really unique role. We bring together donors from across the region who are interested in leveraging their gifts to being educated about where they can make an impact. And we do that in a way that helps support their dreams, really. I think about it as helping people make their dreams come true for how they want to have an impact in the world, where they want to have the most influence with their dollars, and really get together and make the world a better place. So there are 800 community foundations in the country. There are 14 here in Maryland.
Okay.
The Baltimore Community Foundation is the largest in Maryland, and across the country we're about in the top 50 for size of assets. So that gives us the luxury of focusing on developing programs, but the majority of our work is helping donors to figure out
how to get rid of money, right?
It's a beautiful thing. It really is a beautiful thing.
So you guys are sort of like the in-between. So if we have somebody that wants to leave a charitable bequest, or when they pass away, or give money while they're still alive, they can contact you guys, and you can set them up in a way that would, honor their wishes, whether they're alive, dead, in the name of their family, however.
Absolutely. It takes shape in a lot of different ways. We have almost 900 funds that people have developed, donor-advised funds. Many of them now are continuing in perpetuity as people have endowed them or passed on. So the people who have current donor-advised funds, that's for their day-to-day giving. They've decided they want the convenience of giving through a fund, having the one tax receipt when they make the contribution, and then directing where they'd like their gifts to go. And then very often they use that as a component of their estate planning to continue their giving after their lifetime. So sometimes the conversations show up where I'm just talking to somebody about planning, or an advisor, like one of you, has pulled me into the conversation for the philanthropic part, and we look at where the person's been giving through their life. Now, if I ask the person, where are you charitable? They're probably not going to tell me. They're probably not going to say, oh, I'm charitable here, because if they've been giving to their church or synagogue for 25 or 30 years, they don't think of it as charity. They think of it as the right thing to do, a place where they find meaning in their lives. So when we ask the question, where do you spend your time? What causes are you passionate about? And we get that sense of things, and we see where over the period of years they've been doing that, then we have the conversation about, wouldn't it be wonderful if they could continue to count on you after your lifetime? Because if you've been giving for 25 or 30 years, you're in their budget.
Right.
They need you, and you may not believe how important you are. And that's the other thing that I find that's wonderful about these conversations, and I'm sure the two of you do as well with your clients, that you help people realize that they have an important place in the world.
They do. And I know Ryan's got some questions here, but I just have one, because my ears perked up when I heard this. So you guys, if I understand this right, then you're like, so if somebody gets in touch with you to donate money, you're not like the United Way where it just goes into one lump fund and it gets doled out to however they see fit. The person giving the money still has some strings attached and can control where those assets go.
Correct. It's called donor advised because it does represent an irrevocable gift to the Baltimore Community Foundation. But there are a lot of rules and there's lots of control around that. So
you guys are more like managing the process.
Right, we're managing the process. We take the burden of that process off the donor. Many people come to us after considering about whether or not to create their own foundation, and then they realize they can still have the benefit of that. The only times we would say no to a grant request that a donor has about their own donor advised funds is if it doesn't meet IRS regulations.
Okay.
So probably the most common example is someone who wants to buy a table at a gala, for instance, but there's a benefit attached to that and they've already received the full deduction by giving to their donor advised fund.
Okay.
So it's just small things like that, but yes, and so we support the person in that process.
Okay.
And something I found out online when I was looking over the website, and something you were kind of touching on, was the difference between a charitable BCF fund, which of course is the Baltimore Community Foundation, and private funds, and how difficult private funds can be. There can be a lot of accounting attached to it, a lot more costs, and it sounds like you guys do a good job of easing everybody into their charitable dreams, as you put it, without having some of the headaches that come along with the private fund.
Yeah, we think so. Certainly there are lots of great reasons why people want to do their own foundation. Sometimes it just depends on the nature of the family dynamics or what their goals are. But very often, as I said, they can have the same support. They can have the research that we do for them, and they don't have to do all the paperwork. It is costly to start a foundation. But also on the other end, a few times a year we engage in conversations with people who've had their foundation and maybe they're passed it on to their children, and now the adult children don't have the same passion or they don't have the same time as their parents did, and they can terminate that into a fund at the community foundation, which still meets all of their needs.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, and over the years in my practice, in our practice, we've seen people change. They have a life insurance policy that they say, okay, now we're going to put the beneficiary of X, Y, Z, or their church or whatever, or they change the beneficiaries on a retirement account or something like that. That's an okay way to do it, but it sounds to me like the Baltimore Baltimore Community Foundation is more. When you accept those funds, you're like, when somebody leaves money to a church, it just sort of goes into their general fund, and then the church spends it as they see fit. Whereas something like this, they could have a little bit more control as to how the money gets doled out, either as when they're alive or as they, when they pass away.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's there's a number of reasons why people come to us. So not only the private foundation reason, just doing it with us, but sometimes people turn to private firms who also, there's lots of great donor advised fund products out there. People generally come to us, I think, for value-based reasons, that they want to be involved in more of that community conversation, have access to real-time community information, and it's more of a relationship they're looking for rather than a transactional one. They want to get someone on the phone quickly, that kind of thing. And in terms of giving, we often talk with people who put BCF directed to their fund as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy or a brokerage account, an IRA, and as you know, it takes it out of the estate, goes directly. An adult child wouldn't have to pay taxes on the income, so perhaps they'll end up getting a gift a bequest from their parents in a different way, but the IRA, when it comes to a charity, there's no tax on it. So the person really reaps the full benefit of their work, and then it goes into it can go generally, and some people say, just you BCF, use it in the way you think best for the community. But also people can say, I want this to go into my fund, and at the time of my passing, I want it to be for this purpose. We do fund agreements. We take our time with that, so people really have a sense of peace and comfort that we will be using their gifts as they direct, from what they want to name the fund. Is it in their own names? Is it a symbolic kind of name? Is it in memory of somebody? All the way to how they want it to be used for what program. Another reason why people come to us in that way, instead of going direct to a charity, is they might have had experiences with nonprofits, and they know when they think of in perpetuity, nonprofits change over the years, or maybe the smaller nonprofits have a hard time existing long term. So we have that extra layer of stewardship. If someone's directed us to give an annual gift to an organization and then changes its mission, or perhaps goes into bankruptcy, unfortunately, then we have the obligation and the systems in place to redirect that gift to best meet the original intentions of the donors. And that's very meaningful to many people. Now, certainly a Hopkins or a BMA is not going to disappear, right? But for a good segment of the nonprofit world, when you think about 100 years from now, even many organizations, wouldn't it be wonderful if some of the organizations that are disease-oriented do disappear? Right? Think about March of Dimes, who was originally focused on polio. Now it's focused on healthy children. So so we have those kinds of different conversations.
So 100 years takes us out to 2118.
Right.
I don't think we'll have to worry. I don't have to worry about that.
No, but
I know what you're saying.
And we have redirected gifts based on original documentation. One of our oldest funds is the Oscar Murray Fund, which came to us in the 70s after we were created. Oscar Murray recently had the 100th anniversary of his death. And he had a trust, and he was the president of the B&O Railroad. And his original intention was to support widows and orphans of the B&O Railroad. And then after that, seniors living in need. So just in the last few years, we're going through that transition where there are fewer and fewer widows and orphans. And how do the gifts show up now that best meet his original intention? So there are some senior services, kids who are aging out of foster care, because that's how we define orphans today. But it was really a great process. Our program committee looked at what did it mean to be an orphan 100 years ago, and how does it show up today. So that's some of the work we do.
So Rosemary, when somebody's sitting there listening to this podcast, if they were to say, okay, I've got 10,000, 50,000, whatever the number is that they want to work with, and would come to you, what could they expect to have as far as like, what do you guys ballpark? Is there a cost to set things up with you? Is there what sort of process would they go through? Sort of walk people through that, because I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. So day to day, I primarily work with advisors who want to bring me in on conversations with their clients, or they'll get the clients to a certain point and then refer. Sometimes the individuals call directly. And so all of that process, that discussion time, there's no fee. As a nonprofit serving the public, that's not something we charge a fee for. If somebody opened a donor advised fund, then there is a minimal fee depending on size of assets. It's a lower cost if the person endows the fund. And so first, if somebody is only coming to us for an estate gift, an amazing conversation, but if it's not for the day-to-day and the fund doesn't get created until the time of their death, maybe that's not for 20 years. There are no fees for 20 years. It's only until the moment we receive the assets and are responsible for managing it. Does that happen? And
then you just charge a management fee, like a percentage of assets?
It's a percentage of assets, very minimal.
So not uncommon, so there's a bunch of other companies that have donor advised funds, like Fidelity. I hate to mention companies, but we've used that Fidelity donor advised fund, and they charge whatever, 1% or somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's roughly 1.5 depending on the size of assets, 0.5.
That covers everything.
It covers everything. And and that shows up differently for people. I'm sure you see that in your own practice. Some people come in, they know exactly what they want. It takes very little time to set it up. You keep in touch with them. Other people need time to think. They come back over and over till they make decisions. And we're able to be in that conversation with people in a way that maybe the advisor doesn't feel is necessarily something they want to build the client for, but they want the client to have that conversation. And so we know in our role, we're not the professional financial advisor. We don't look to supplant the relationship you bring us in for this part of the conversation, and then we keep in touch with you. We send you copies of any documentation. So there's one team.
Right. That's important.
Yeah, it
because
is. It is.
You know, people they think, you know, they want to be charitable. They want to, you know, most people are like, all right, whatever's left over, I'm going to give to something.
Yeah.
As opposed to this is more proactive, and you're sort of piecing off of, you know, something while you're still around, and you know, maybe you just have a little bit more, give a little more thought to it.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes it's for the convenience. People may be giving $10,000 a year or $100,000 a year, and they're always writing the checks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas they set up a donor advised fund, they don't have to track it for IRS, they don't have to track it for anything else other than going online or emailing us, and then they get all the fun, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we did a really cool podcast a couple times ago. If you're listening to this, we have an accountant, Ryan Levy, and we went through a lot of different tax things to do before the end of the year. But one of the things that we really hit on was giving folks that are 70 and a half years old that have to take required minimum distributions from their retirement accounts. You can divert that to a charity and not pay the taxes on that. And you know, sometimes people just give it directly to a charity, but depending on the size of that required minimum distribution, are you guys seeing a lot of inflows from things of that nature?
We are. No, it's a little different at a community foundation with a donor advised fund, because as we know, IRS does not allow a rollover to go into a donor advised fund. I think of it sort of as a trade that in order to not be taxed on it, you have to give up control.
Okay.
However, somebody can talk with us, set up what's called a designated fund. They already decide what charities, maybe they're already giving to 20 charities a year. They set it up, it's irrevocable, they cannot change it. And if they do that before they roll over the money, the regulations allow us to take the money.
Okay.
They can't ever change anything, they set
Right.
that up, they've lost the control. They can also give to any fund that we have that's a program fund or for an organization fund, but is not a donor advised fund. So if someone loves the SPCA, we have an endowed fund in partnership with the SPCA of Maryland. They can give there. They can give to, as someone did last year, a very generous gift to the Judy Center Fund, which supports early childhood education. So there are a variety of ways that people can still use that. And then, as we've talked about, certainly it's a significant part of estate planning.
Yeah.
One of my questions was, again, when I was back on the website, I noticed there's 4 ways to give. Open a fund,
Right.
invest in Baltimore, support Baltimore Community Foundation, and create a legacy.
Okay.
And I was just wondering who fits in what path, or who would you suggest go 1 through 4 in either which way?
You know what? I think it really comes down to the individual, where they are in their life, where they are in their values. When we say invest in Baltimore, that's sort of the unrestricted gift, where they might say, you know, I don't know what Baltimore's going to need in 30 years, 50 years. I'm going to create a fund, and then every year that goes to our programs and our discretionary grant making as estate planning. Sometimes people do that in their lifetime, where they say, you know, I know you're going to need money, and I'm just going to set this up as an endowed fund for investing in Baltimore. Again, it goes to our programs, the gift that it generates every year. Opening a fund, sometimes if people haven't gotten to the estate planning conversation, or if they're at a stage of their life where they know something happens to them, everything's going to the kids, they might just open a simple donor advised fund for their day-to-day charitable giving. And then as the kids get older, or they get to be financially set themselves, they're going to see they have more discretionary income to think about giving to charity. And so we work with people through those stages, and so very often the lines are blurred.
Yeah, that's you guys have so many options. It's just each person is travel their own path.
And that's our role, as any advisor does, is we sit with them in that space to hear where they are in their life. Things maybe to save to think about, but then what are their goals? And it always comes down to what's important to the individual and where they are in their life stage. But last year, in estate planning conversations, I worked with people aged 28 to 94. And so all of those generations.
It's everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, right. It's just,
Anybody with money.
a lot of different stages, and but everyone's an individual in it.
It sort of reminds me, like when we do special needs planning for clients, they have the option, if a special needs trust is the right thing to do, they can either set one up on their own individually and go to an attorney, pay all the costs and do it on their own, or there's a pool trust and they can go, and that's where they've got stock documents, and it's, the costs are less expensive, and it's just more like an off-the-shelf kind of thing. And not that you guys are off the shelf, but somebody comes to you, they're not having to do all the upfront stuff. You've got the IRS reporting, you've got the paperwork, you've got the know-how, the process. I mean, everything. If somebody just wants to, be charitable and do it in a way that, either you help them, show them how to do it, or they already know what they want to do, you guys just sort of seem like you have it all together, which is awesome.
Yeah, we think so. The other thing that we offer people, which sometimes is very important, again, depending where they are in their lives, is anonymity. So we say to people, we can be your firewall. If you want to make one anonymous gift, or you want all your gifts to be anonymous, that's what we can offer you. We can simply have the checks come from the Baltimore Community Foundation, or you can just have it be the name of your fund, and we can protect your address. So it depends. Sometimes people are fine being public, but every now and then they want to do an anonymous gift. Other people say to me, I don't want my relationships to change. I've come into an inheritance I didn't expect. I want to give to organizations I've always cared about, but now that I can give more, I don't want them to change how they treat me.
Yeah.
So we're able to offer that to people, or to people who simply don't want to be asked over and over from the charities. Yeah.
So Rosemary, I know Ron's got a couple follow-up last questions. Let's tell people how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to find out more information?
As Ryan's been looking at the website, they can go to the website. My contact information is there. Our number for the office is 410-332-4171. Easy ways. We have a great part of our website on legacy planning if people want to just take a look before they call, but we're always happy to start the process.
And we'll post that to the show notes too, so the website.
Thanks.
So Ryan, we'll give you the last word here. Any follow-up questions we can?
More I guess than a question, doing like my due diligence and looking at the research and actually listening to you speak has been really refreshing. I didn't expect you to be extremely businessy or anything, but I also didn't expect it to be such a passion project overview of things where it's so nice to see that you're really fighting for what people really want and helping the community, and I think that's why it's doing so well and moving in the right direction. I noticed an LGBTQ fund, really staying up with the times, doing the due diligence on what people really need, and that was something that was just really refreshing for me to hear you talk about.
Thank you. And BCF is really committed to the community. I mean, we started the LGBTQ fund out of a response to what we were hearing from the community, the vulnerability of youth. Our board said we have to do something. We're very committed from the board level all the way through the organization and our work on race, equity, and inclusion, and how Baltimore can be a better, stronger place. And the beauty of a community foundation is our role in convening conversations around the larger issues and offering donors, if they choose, the opportunity to be part of leveraging their dollars and being in a place where we're all working together. Like the saying says, life is a team sport, right?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Last question. We were talking on the phone before we sat down to do this, and you mentioned that there was things you could donate outside of money.
Oh,
whether
absolutely.
it be homes or anything that's memorable, paintings that are expensive that you can give. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I guess in the field we call that complex gifts, right? All of the different things that you mentioned we're able to consider. Now certainly there's a different kind of process than if it's a simple stock transfer, mutual fund, or cash, but we do have a process where we can consider gifts of real estate, closely held stock. We have some great partnerships with private companies where they allow stock shares to employees, then they buy it back and the money's for charitable giving, art collections, whole estates. So we have that process, and not only does that sometimes benefit the donors who want that flexibility, But we're also working in partnership a lot with small organizations who might not have that infrastructure to accept those sorts of gifts. So we can work with the donor, help them establish a fund that will benefit that organization that they're passionate about. So again, a real team approach to philanthropic giving across the region.
Okay, and that, we did not get into, and I don't want to get into this stuff because this is the stuff where you really need an advisor and a team for what you're giving away appreciated stock and tax deductions and real estate. And I mean, there's,
it's all individual.
You guys take it all, but
It's
we can help you get it there. But just know that if you want to give something to in a charitable way, this is a really good option to consider.
Yeah, and one of the things we offer that some organizations aren't able to, again, is charitable gift annuities, or a trust option, where if someone is looking to give a significant gift, but they need some income back, or they want to benefit another loved one in their life, we can work with them on that as well.
All great stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought we were winding down like 10 minutes ago, and then we just started going into all this other stuff. So, but this is a Rosemary. For folks to get in touch with you, they can go to Baltimore Community Foundation's website. Just Google it; it'll be attached to the show notes. Just awesome. I mean, I would encourage anybody that has any charitable intent to, if you want to talk to Ryan or I about it, please feel free to get in touch with us. If you want to talk to Rosemary, you'll get her contact information. So, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful to talk with you both. And if anybody contacts us, again, no obligation. We're happy to be in a conversation to support charitable giving.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, great. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you next time. That was really good.
Thank you.